and you are listening to Guardian Talk Radio. I am your host today, Garvin, and I will introduce my guest in a moment. But let me talk to you a little bit about what we are going to have a conversation with today. The captain of the ship, Garth Roseborough, is away on a much-needed vacation. So he, along with my number one radio fan, is chilling, and I want them to enjoy themselves while they're on break, and together we will be back again, God spares life, on Sunday on Remark. But today, on Guardian Today, we are going to be finishing our conversation that we began last week talking about the state of our children. And I asked the question, are our children okay? I'm going to reframe that conversation for you to join us here in studio with your questions and commentary as always. And you know, when I host or co-host a show, I like for us to keep the discourse at the highest possible level. So let's just keep it really friendly. No need to be fussing because we're talking about the children today. But for those of you that are going to be participating in our conversation today, you can call us at these numbers: 323-6232, 325-4316, and 325-4259. Those in the family of islands, you can get us at 242-300-5020. And for our texters, you can get us at 422-4796. Now, I have the pleasure of being in studio with my good friend, my Starbucks companion, and he is the man in the Bahamas who's the only politician I know that needs no introduction. You know, politicians, everybody knows what a politician is, but everybody knows my guest. I mean, I have never gone someplace with him, and we're sitting down, and the people invariably come in and don't introduce themselves to this man. He is a person who I have come to love and admire over the years. And, me and Garth are good friends. And I don't know Garth. I think my other buddy here, it is a close tie. But nevertheless, without further ado, I want to introduce you, my guest for today, while we chop it up with you guys to talk about the kids, Ambassador, Pastor, Bishop, Glen. Glen, say good afternoon to the people.
Good afternoon. Now that's the right time, because when you talk about politicians looking for God,
right?
I say, man, this brother getting me in trouble.
Yeah.
I am trying to run far away,
I understand.
Far away, the Bahamian people made sure I got 0 votes, so at the end of the day, that disqualified me, right?
Fair enough.
It's good to be here, my brother.
Man, thank you for joining me today in studio. So let me reframe, for those of you that were not with us last week, a conversation that's quite sobering. And the backdrop to this conversation really came about as a result of a report that Dr. Darville had released as a part of his budget contribution. Dealing with the Global School Health Report is the title of the report for those of you who are data junkies like me, who like to read these kinds of things. But the results from the Global Health Report of 2025, the data from this report, I think, was gathered between 2022 and 2023, mostly, if memory serves me correctly. But it was commissioned by the Ministry of Health, obviously with the support of the Ministry of Education. And Brother Glen, they surveyed 13 to 17-year-olds for the purposes of this report. Some of the findings that we'll chop up and talk about with the audience today include the following. So they looked at a multi-year study, and they were trying to get a sense of adolescent health and priority-focused areas critical to improving the well-being of our children. The areas surveyed included the sexual behavior of young people, substance abuse, what is their level of exposure to violence, what are their mental health challenges, what are anything is, do they have suicidal ideation, and what are the chronic disease risk factors. So as you can tell from that list, it was pretty thorough, pretty comprehensive review of the state of our children. Now, many of us recognize that 13 to 17 is high school years. I guess for us, junior high, for the younger ones, senior high, for the older ones in that age range. And some of the findings from this study that I want you to consider are the following that we'll talk a little bit about today during our time together. 21% of the teens in that age bracket, Brother Glen, are considered obese. 21% are considered obese. 56% of the teens are considered sexually active by 13. 56 are sexually active by 13. 17% of Bahamian children use e-cigarettes and 10% traditional cigarettes. This is the one that blew me away. 73.9% of our teens are drinking. 17 years old or younger. 16.6% of our teens now use marijuana. And 12% use cocaine. This is up from 1% that identified as having used cocaine in 1998. 32% of teenagers experience or witness violence in their homes. 30% reported being involved in fights on or around school. 38% acknowledged that they were bullied. Another 30% of teens always or most of the time feel depressed and hopeless. This is an increase from 20% in 1998. And the final statistic from this report that I will share before we start to talk about this is 19.5% of teens have attempted suicide. And that was the piece of data that Dr. Darville shared within his report. He didn't talk about the at least the clip that I saw, the volume of findings that I just shared, some of the highlights with you guys on the state of our children. You know, and it's interesting that we're having this conversation today on the backdrop of what our northern neighbors are dealing with this morning in the aftermath of what happened to those children in Minnesota. Teens are under tremendous pressure. And then this morning, coming up on my feed on Facebook, a young man committed suicide, and his parents seem to be really engaged parents. The mother and the father are suing OpenAI, ChatGPT, because ChatGPT was used as the teen's companion as he talked to ChatGPT like it was a person about what he was planning on doing. So, needless to say, what is going on in 2025 when it comes to our children, to me, is fundamentally different from what you or I would have experienced as teenagers.
Absolutely.
So when you listen to some of those statistics and some of the findings from the report, what about it strikes you as the most alarming thing? What concerns you as a parent, as a father, as a husband? What strikes you in those bits of information that I shared?
I heard the report. Again, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. I heard the report and instantly I became overwhelmed by it. All right, because I believe, Mr. Russell, you get a sense or feel that something sort of is not right.
Yes.
But when I heard the report and it was scientific driven and it came from the source that it did, it sort of reinforced all of the fears or the concerns that you have, some of the things that you see within the context of the community. Both my background as a police officer or in the past, Charlie, get a sense of what's happening within the context of the community.
Yes.
And so while there may not have been a specific thing, definitely if there was one such thing would be the idea of suicide, the idea of the thoughts and other stuff. And I'm not sure whether that is normal or not in the context that people go through various kinds of changes, right? But what came out of that was the sense for all of us, and I believe when I heard it instantly, I hit up some of the persons that I am aware who are involved in ministry, involved with dealing with children, and I send it to about 5-6 different groups and say, hey, we've got to do something about it. So the sense of urgency, the sense that this is a national cry, and to hear it coming from a legitimate governmental source means that this is something that requires all of us to act. Our children are in crisis. I'll just say this statement, we were talking about it while we were driving, that one of the speakers during the chaplaincy conference that we were to in Orlando, one of the speakers, Pastor Tim Johnson, he put it this way: when the fathers are in crisis, the next generation feels the impact.
Wow.
And so my sense of all of this is not just our children, that what we're seeing manifested within the context of our children is a result of the many other societal ills, and the children are really being made to bear the brunt of what they're feeling, and they're expressing it in different ways, sexual ways, drug ways, anything that in their mind or thought can bring some level of satisfaction. So I think it's a conversation I want to commend you for, again, ensuring that we continue this conversation.
No, it's a great commentary, Glenn, especially when it comes to the fathers. So those consistent listeners who have heard me on radio now know that I enjoy reading, like so many of our guests do. And the book that I am reading now, it's heavy with data, but it's not something that you read through like a novel. You really need to soak up what it is trying to be imparted on you. And it's called The Boy Crisis. And while it's difficult for us, for those Bahamian authors who are trying to really create books that are about our lived experiences, until we get to that level with a degree of consistency that we can really see and analyze with findings like this that are multi-year studies. The Boy Crisis talks about what young men are experiencing across the world. And of course, by across the world, we know they mean major economies and countries. But one of the things that has already become apparent in the book is the magnitude to which boys are disproportionately affected by the absence of fathers, and how it has gotten to epidemic proportions with the increase of divorce, the increase of unmarried women having children, and the list goes on and on. The thing that the authors highlight that is the biggest challenge with not having fathers in homes, the author calls it what he mentions, it's the purpose void.
Yeah.
And what it means in layman's terms is that it's almost like the inability of boys to find a grounding, if you will, and a direction for their life without daddy being their North Star, if you will. Girls have a different problem when fathers are not home. We can talk about that if we have an opportunity. But really, it's the boys that are affected by the seeming aimlessness with which they go through life. This lack of identity with manhood, or what healthy masculinity looks like, is one of the significant findings. But we've got a call on the air. Let's hear what they have to say. Caller, welcome to Guardian Radio. You're on the air with Garvin and Glen. How are you? Yeah. The
little children them going on camping, sleeping.
Oh yeah.
Look at the whole flood came, drowned so many. Some yet they still find. People still are wondering what is going on. The other day or yesterday, in United States, in one of the Catholic church, this 20-year-old man went and their children there praying,
Praying.
Go back to school.
Praying, yeah.
Mr. Russell, what is going on?
I don't know, my brother, for real.
You can't ask nobody because they don't know you. don't care who you go to now, they don't have the answer. So all we have to do is to safeguard our children and just keep praying for one another at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, my brother, for your contribution.
Thank you.
You know, I think we're back at the stage. If you remember, Glenn, you know, you and I are students of politics around the world, actually. And if you remember, Hillary Clinton, a good many years ago now, talked about a village raising a child.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've lost that concept, and we have to revisit it. We'll talk a little later today in the show if we have time to talk about some solutions I have around that. But I do believe that we have to take a greater responsibility as a community when it comes to raising our children. So we've got another call. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air on Guardian Today with Garvin and Glen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir. Hey, Cleveland.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. Okay. Yes, sir. Wow. Okay, not in terms of custody or stuff like that, or visitation and those kinds of matters. Okay. 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 Jesus. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, sir. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. Yes, sir. Wow. Yes, sir. That is such a powerful statement. Cleaver, thank you as always for your contributions. But I love talking to you and hearing you on the radio because it's clear you have been in this space, researched this, and been fighting for rights of fathers for a long time. So I certainly appreciate your conversation. Hopefully me and Garth can have you in studio probably on one of our Sunday show where we can ventilate this issue a little bit better. But thank you for your contribution. Let's go to the next caller on the line. Caller, you're on the air with Glen and Garvin. How are you? I'm fantastic.
Good afternoon, sir.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Go ahead. Mm. Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. Wow. Mm. 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 Wow. You know, one of the what? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 That's such a true statement, my friend. Thank you for your contribution as always. Love that. Uh, we are gonna take our first break of the show today, and when we get back, I'm gonna talk to Glenn about what his thoughts are on that mindset issue that the last caller mentioned, to see if we can find a solution to this issue. We'll be back on Guardian Radio after this break.